Hello and welcome back. Before we get to part 2, Real Talk, please allow us to fulfill our capitalistic duty and plug our Patreon, the Contrarian Supplements.
That's right. For a small fee, you too can help the Contrarians rage on.
We have tiers ranging from just $1 to $10. It all depends on how much content you can handle.
Starting at $1, it's a Travoltis tier, which gets you access to new bonus episodes focusing on a new movie every month, as well as access to the patron chat. Join other patrons in making fun of our opinions.
Moving up to $3 is the Winonis tier, which unlocks access to our pre-recording notes, our video reviews, and our spin-off show, Contrarians After Hours.
That's a more laid-back space where we talk about other things we've been watching, reading, playing, thinking about. Sometimes it's related to the movies being covered in the main feed, but it usually isn't.
If you want to be part of those patrons who help us shape the show by telling us which movies to tackle, that's when you sign up for the $5 tier, the Embries, and the $10, the Gads.
Finally, all supplement subscribers, regardless of the tier, get access to our archive of special patron projects. Head over to patreon.com/contrarianprime now to join.
Be sure to listen through the end of the episode to find out what's coming up to the Contrarian Supplements this month. Now, it's time for some Real Talk.
You little pig. 6 years old and you're still wetting yourself. You don't know how many times I wished it was you, not him, that died.
I just want you to be happy.
I just want you to be happy. Sometimes I just want to smash your head against a brick wall until your fucking brains pop out.
You're not my mother.
What did you say?
I said you're not my mother!
I am your mother!
We are back, Julio. Australian cinema at the forefront once more in the form of the Babadook, which again, I remember the hype this got. Mentioned it premiered at Sundance. I remember hearing about it.
Do you remember seeing lots of Babadooks at Halloween when you went down to 6th Street that year?
No, I was well past that. Even if this movie is over 10 years old, I had already gotten that out of my system. But
no sexy Babadooks on your Facebook feed?
Not that I saw. But now that I know to look for them. Written and directed by Jennifer Kent, based on Monster by Jennifer Kent, which was a short film. I think an interesting film. Some peaks and valleys. As far as influences, Kent cited Eyes Without a Face, which is a great film. Carnival of Souls, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, which is the greatest film ever. The Thing, The Shining, Nosferatu.
The Robert Eggers version?
Yes.
Which you watched by traveling through time.
Futuristically, yes. Okay. Can't say that I saw a lot of those influences in there, but, you know, she knows a little bit of ball. I can say that.
I'll just name a whole bunch of horror movies. And some people will just be able to recognize things. It's like, oh, yeah, I think I can project some Nosferatu on this.
This will give me cred in some circles.
Yeah. I'm kidding. That's more of a Contrarian's Corner comment.
Important to get into right away here before we even get into the other reviews. But a large part of this movie's budget was crowdfunded, which is always near and dear to our hearts. So although the process was challenging and she was forced to reduce the total budget, producer Christina Caton managed to secure funding around $2.5 million. However, they still required an additional budget for the construction of the film sets. To attain the funds for the sets, they launched a Kickstarter in June of 2012, the target of $30,000. Their funding goal was reached on September 27th of that same year, when with over 259 backers, they made just a little bit over $30,000. Kent said that the crowdfunding closed a crucial gap in which to cover the design and special effects to make the movie. So I said a large amount, which, you know, it's not half of that $2 million by any stretch, but for a movie that, you know, love it or hate it, it definitely has an idea of how it wants to look. That is, the word crucial is accurate in that.
As it always happens whenever we run into one of these crowdfunded or partially crowdfunded movies, I'm instantly wondering what the rewards were like
Yeah.
the tiers. Did you get the actual Babadook book that we were joking about in Contreras Corner? Because that'd be awesome, right? That you donate $100 and then you're going to get a copy of that prop.
Signed DVD, something like that.
Babadook plushie.
Why not?
Handmade by Jennifer Kent. Yeah, I mean, I wish my budget allowed for the support of projects like this. I think that is, I mean, I'm not saying that if I run into the Babadook like cold, I would say, oh yeah, I'm supporting this one, but I like the idea. Whenever we brought up crowdfunding, like I like that idea of people just saying, okay, let's see if we can make this happen, because this person is not going to get it made with the studio system and other more traditional means, but maybe we can get it done this way. And so I think that's cool, and that you can use it in combination with bigger, more traditional funding also. I mean, that's what it's all about.
And casting the child lead for the film involved casting director Nikki Barrett, viewing around 500 audition tapes of young boys before selecting smaller groups and then individuals for in-person auditions. 6-year-old Noah Wiseman was selected as a standout, with Kent saying he had a certain innocence about him that older boys did not have, possibly as he is the son of a child psychologist. Julio, you and I both love filmmaking and the filmmaking process. Personally, do you think you could sit through 500 audition tapes of child actors?
No, that is my personal Babadook. That's what the pop-up book looks like. Me sitting through the auditions and then slowly taking a knife to my throat. It sounds like a nightmare, but that's, of course, I don't know, man. How much are you paying me? Because then again, I can. I mean, that's a hell of a thing, right? To be able to claim that you're the one that spotted one of those child actors that goes on to have an amazing career. Mm-hmm. Make a huge splash, and then again the director takes all the credit, right? Because going back to what we were saying in Contreras Corner, Haley Joel Osment, you think Shyamalan, you don't think the casting director. So yeah. Maybe the director makes the final call too, so who knows. Yeah, that sounds awful.
Well, there you have it. That is the Babadook. That's all, folks. That's set the ground for where we're heading into here in Real Talk. Julio, again, a towering, impressive, at times confusing 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. And so there was only
shattering.
There was a small pool of just 2% of those reviews to pull from. Which quotes did you get for us?
I'm going to start with Matt Donato from We Got This Covered, who says, "The Babadook is a horror fable that's light on terror and heavy on whiny children, making for an uneven watch that squanders potential around far too many corners."
Okay.
Man, I didn't get to make the point in Concerns Corner, but every single child is awful in this movie. Not the performance-wise, but I'm talking about they're just unpleasant.
Unbearable.
Yes. Because the little cousin is just as bad. She's dealing with her own.
You don't have a dad.
Yeah, what a bitch. I'm not saying she deserved to be pushed out of the treehouse, but
no one is.
I didn't feel too bad. I mean, she survived, and she's gonna remember that forever. Next time that she wants to say something mean to someone else, she'll be like, "Oh, that's right. Last time I did something like that, my nose broke in 2 places." So. Next, Clay Kane from BET.com says the film strives for horror in the way of The Shining or Silence of the Lambs, but it's more like Annabelle with better cinematography, which isn't a compliment. I haven't seen any of the Annabelle movies, but I didn't realize that they were that old. Or is this a more recent review?
No, I thought the Annabelle movies were like... no, I'm thinking of something else. Okay, the first Annabelle was the same year, so it would have been a contemporary.
Okay. God
damn, that movie made $260 million.
No crowdfunding for that one either.
No, sir.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it, kid. It just feels like an unnecessary dig to Annabelle. David Harris from Spectrum Culture says, The Babadook, the debut feature from Australian writer-director Jennifer Kent, has all the right elements in place for an effective horror film, but ultimately stumbles when they fail to congeal. Congealing elements in the climax. That's probably pretty close to how I feel. And I shall elaborate, but not before We get to our final quote. Drew Hunt from the Chicago Reader says, "The Babadook makes a convincing argument for classy psychological horror cinema, even as it fails to meet its own lofty standard." So that's almost a fresh one until like that very last bit. Okay, just opening statement for me, Alex. Despite the similarities and the similar frustrations that it engendered in me, it's better than Hereditary.
I am your mother. Do you understand?
Interesting.
Do you feel as strongly as I do in the way that they parallel each other? It's like we're telling this story that is very psychological and it's somewhat rooted in reality, and we just have the supernatural element kind of sprinkled on top. And then once we get into the final stretch of the movie, the supernatural side really takes over and, in my opinion, kind of derails things. Did you have that same experience, or were you either so not invested in it that it didn't really bother you when it became supernatural, or it didn't bother you at all because you're more into you watch more horror movies than I do, so maybe you're just expecting that pivot anyway?
I think I also enjoyed it more than Hereditary because this doesn't have the air of smug and pompousness that Hereditary does. I hate saying this because I go from saying I call something else pompous to me being as pretentious as possible. But like I've watched movies before, man. Like that's kind of just what this boils down to. There's some good acting and obviously a story that is passionately told looks good, but this is not anything new. The movie I was thinking of, by the way, it was called Starry Eyes. It's a movie I gave 2.5 stars. It wasn't terribly good, but it was memorable for sure. And it's a very similar thing to this of this girl gets possessed and it ruins like everything in her life and she deteriorates. And, you can just watch The Lords of Salem. You'll be all right.
Come on. Don't torpedo your own argument this early on.
No. I withdraw that comment. I just didn't nothing came across as new to me, which isn't always bad. We need formulaic movies. I plead for them quite often in today's film landscape. But I remember people acting like this was something like brand new and groundbreaking. And so there's nothing like more frustrating than a movie that tries to present it as like happening in real life with real characters that are intelligent, but then just falls into like all the trappings of, a cliche horror movie. That's why I don't criticize the idiocy of the characters in the Friday the 13th films because they're supposed to be stupid. But here it's, it's just kind of confusing. Again, I get it. Julio, do you get it? This is her dealing with her trauma. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Tyler Durden sitting next to Edward Norton in the plane. No, I got it. But exactly because I get it, I think that's where the frustration comes from. Because I wanted to, well, no. I mean, it does commit to its idea. I was going to say I wanted to commit to that idea, that thing that it wants to say. And now my problem is that it's not saying it the way I wanted to, right? And yeah, you're talking about formulas, and there is a pattern, I think, for this type of horror movie when it comes to my experience, whereas like I get really invested in the first act, start having my doubts in the second act, and then the third act loses me completely because it becomes the movie that I think other horror buffs want it to be, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I was wondering if maybe it would work better for you, because when I sit down to watch this movie, like when I sit down to watch Hereditary, like I wanted to just never go full on supernatural. I don't really care about the demon. I just want the struggle of this woman dealing with this kid that just she can't raise. She can't figure out how to raise him, right? Hereditary was like this woman dealing with multiple grief in among her family. And that stuff is like what's interesting. And then Hereditary goes off the rails much, much worse because the supernatural part that they put in is just so, it's not even that it's pompous, which it is. I like that word, but it's also kind of so up its own ass with its lore that it's almost impenetrable, right? The Babadook at least is pretty straightforward. Like it doesn't really go out of its way to try to explain what the Babadook is, what the creature is, where it come from. All you know is that, well, it obviously represents what she's feeling, her frustrations, her her struggles, all that stuff. And that's really all that they give us. There is no fucking voiceover from Ann Dowd explaining
No.
what the mission of the Babadook is and why he needs this, why at this time of the year, and anything like that. So I appreciated that. That obviously must contribute to the 90-minute runtime, which is perfect. That's something else that this movie has going for it. So it's not that bad, but still there's that big chunk of the movie where I was just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
She starts having the hallucinations and seeing her dead husband and waking up from a nightmare where she thinks that she's killed a kid and now she's holding the knife, like all that stuff. That's when it feels generic to me. I was like, this is very derivative. I've seen it so many times and it's not really doing anything new in that specific case, right? Once the mom gets possessed, it's just a horror movie. Now it's just a horror movie. But when she wasn't possessed and she was just this poor woman that couldn't get sleep because the fucking kid was constantly needing something, and she kept getting more and more alienated from whatever family and friends she has. I mean, that stuff is gripping, and that has very little to do with the actual Babadook. So it's a little bit my curse for going into a horror movie like that, right? And maybe there are people that are just more open-minded, just take the ride. It's like, yeah, it starts like that, but man, then it gets crazy with the Babadook, and you're supposed to enjoy that part.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Because the Babadook is not like the sole thing responsible for, like, I understand the Babadook is emblematic and like symbolizes her trauma and whatnot, but like there's other things in her life that are, she hates her job, her son, you know, she I don't want to say deal because that sounds like a negative connotation, but her son obviously has some needs that she has to tend to and whatnot. And so the idea that she confronts this demon and then that solves everything, it's like, okay. I understand how trauma works, and I understand that like there's issues that you have to deal with. Again, I've never had my spouse killed in a car wreck on the way to have a baby, so this movie deals in extremes, but it's not a swing and a miss. It just feels like there's too much there. Like there's too much meat on the bone for this bad guy that they summoned from a book to be like the root of all the problems.
I like the idea that they don't completely banish him. I think that there is something
I
that
agree.
is maybe,
I really like that ending, that they know it's there and they have to learn how to accept that. I appreciate that.
Yes. I just wish that we had gotten to that point in a more interesting manner that was less, because that's okay. Talk about like horror tropes, right? Like the whole main character is going to stand its ground and realize that all they needed to do to overcome evil was stare evil in the face and tell them that they shall not pass. I mean, that is, and I don't even watch that many horror movies, but I know that is a very well-known plot point, you know, that scenario that I always go back to the end of the first Nightmare on Elm Street, where she just tells him, I don't believe in you or whatever. And then Freddy disappears. it's the ultimate representation of that. And especially because in this case, you've tied it into something that happens to people, like a very real thing. It just feels, I don't think it's disrespectful. I mean, I was obviously playing it up a little bit in Contrarian's Corner, but I think it's a letdown. The way that it just simplifies it that much.
You're trespassing in my house!
Like, if the Babadook was not there, if you remove the Babadook from this story, how does she get to a point where she has a happy ending with the kid, right? What would make things change? So you're making it like this supernatural thing becomes this, she literally just yells at her struggles, at her fears or whatever, and that's it. That's all it took. It just feels too simple for such a complex situation that they painted. I guess like they painted themselves into a corner with that. That's what it feels like. And then you get to a point where it's like, at least, I like the message. Mm-hmm. You don't fully conquer your demons. You just learn to live with them. But there is just something about that ending that doesn't quite click. Like, I don't need you to tell me why the Babadook is being fed worms.
Yeah.
But I wish I had like a better idea of how do you get to that place, right? And it really bothers me that this was not me kidding Contreras Corner. And I suspect it's the same for you. It really bothers me that there is no acknowledgement of what happened to the dog. Like when she was digging for worms, I thought that maybe she was digging a grave for the dog.
Yeah,
Even though it'd been like 2 weeks. But no, it's never mentioned. That is such a traumatic thing for, if it happened in the real world and you became possessed and you killed your dog, like it'd be traumatic for you and traumatic for the child. And yes, you can just say that, well, in the 2 weeks that went by, they obviously got over it. And, they dealt with that as well. But in the context of the movie, that's something that I feel we needed to see, right? I don't know how, but...
I mean, you already know what I'm going to say. Like, that's...
So do it.
Yeah, there's really no winning in that situation. And, especially because the movie tells you what's going to happen. And then it just feels so silly because it's like, okay, well, she can't kill the kid. She can't kill herself. So we should make the dog thing come to life, as opposed to using like the future being shown to you to learn how to avoid it or something. Yeah, and it's really graphic the way they do it too. And we've talked about plenty. It's not like there's a movie that exists where a dog gets killed that you and I don't like, but it's the whole thing of if it feels like it doesn't work within the confines of what they're doing, I'm gonna be like, why the fuck did you do that? But yeah, it's also they recover from that pretty quick. Same thing with the tooth. Like, what was the deal with the tooth? I guess she had to get the evil out or some shit. But
I forgot about it.
It's like in one scene she starts selling her tooth or like her jaw, and then it becomes like so just. There's like numerous shots where I feel it was asking me the question, have you noticed that there's something wrong with her jaw? Have you noticed she might have a toothache?
Were you serious about your favorite scene in the movie when she's watching TV?
That's good. I also like the scene a lot where she tells the kid, she gets Tony Collette's Oscar clip from Hereditary, where she unleashes all of her frustrations on her child, because that's something, if the movie had just gone the whole way and not at all addressed that she's clearly struggling to accept her son's, I guess, difference than others, I felt like it would have been a wasted opportunity. So I found that to be really good. Just aesthetically speaking, that what I said was my favorite scene, where she's watching TV and ends up staying up all night. I think that just is a really good sequence. It looks great. The editing is really good.
Yeah, the movie itself, like overall, it's really well put together. Obviously, I prefer the first half much, much better, but just there's some really effective cuts. When you cut from the new nightmare shot of the kid climbing and he's at the top, and then you just smash cut to the kid screaming in the car while she's driving. I was like, that was great. That's the kind of thing that I wish they'd done with the dog, maybe. Just, if you're going to do it, just leave more to my imagination. Don't show me all that shit. She does it throughout the movie. There's a lot of like really interesting cuts. And every time that she wakes up and it feels like she's lost time, we see her get under the covers, and then the sound of the bugs and the outside life. And then she wakes up and you can just feel how exhausted she is. Like she didn't get any sleep, but the fucking kid is right there asking. And that is, okay, I think the biggest accomplishment from the movie, at least when it comes to somebody like me who is not interested in horror and who is not a parent, is that it made me feel the exhaustion of being a single parent, let alone like a single parent with a child that's having difficulties adjusting. Because I think that first, I don't know, what is it, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, when it's just her dealing with the kid and it just keeps happening. Things keep happening and weighing on her, and she sells it as a performance, and the plot doesn't give you a break. I joked about it in Contreras Corner, saying that it was too much, but I honestly think it's just enough to really, because it has to be overwhelming. That's the whole point. She's overwhelmed, and I think I can only imagine what it's like to be a parent that is living through something similar and then watching that on screen. Like, is it too much? Or is it, you just point at the screen like, yeah, they got it. They nailed it. So that's great. I think that is what makes the movie stand out for me. If we're talking about what is so special about it, that's what I would say separates it from lesser horror movies. That it really captures that humanity and those fears and the pain, all that stuff that comes with having a child. And
it's also interesting because we're dropped into the world with all these problems already in motion. It's not like we witness these things happen. And that's something I constantly call for, is I don't need every fucking thing shown and explained to me. And this movie, to its credit, it packs all this shit in that we're talking about in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's extremely well paced and very mindful of moving it along. So many movies would be better off. Like, you know, majority of movies, what would happen is it would start probably with the car wreck, you know, and then goes to the hospital and she gives birth and then the title hits. Yeah, no, drop me in a world that's already fucked up and we got to figure out how to get out of it.
How'd you like the it's not even a flashback, but just that moment towards the end where she's seeing the husband, this is Babadook as the husband, and he's basically saying lines that you can infer were being said right around the time of the accident, right? He's saying, I think it's going to rain. Just push your seat back. So we're almost there. All that stuff. Did that work for you? Or would that go in the category of like over-explaining it? I didn't need it. Because that was, I think, the one moment where it brought me back. I was kind of checked out during that whole climax. And then I was like, oh, this makes me feel sad for her.
Put your seat back, sweetheart. 10 more minutes and we're there. I think it's gonna rain.
Stop!
I'm going to be honest with you, Julio. I don't think it really affected me one way or the other. It's like, okay.
Like, all right, moving on.
Pretty much.
What if after the husband like falls apart, and then Bugsy walks up and just barks?
And well, no, talks. You didn't deserve me.
Babadook. We're in real talk now. How do you feel about the Babadook as a creature?
Looks cool.
Even when it's a blob?
Yeah. I like the idea. I always love the idea of like an amorphous creature. That's kind of the thing with Jason, honestly, is how does he get there so fast? Who knows? Maybe he turns into goo and just transports. But yeah, it's not anything like, you know, I was trying to think the last like horror character, in my opinion, that brought like a look that is still so iconic and identifiable is the Three Masks from The Strangers. I said character, but I meant to say characters. Even Homeboy from In a Violent Nature, and as you know, I'm a big fan of that movie. I'm thinking about it right now, and I think he has like a welding mask. See, I don't even remember what he wears. And great movie. Check it out if you haven't. And so with the Babadook here, it's cool, it's fine, but I didn't see it and I was like, whoa. But I would use that to give Jennifer Kent credit, and I would say, and I don't know if this is accurate at all, that with the story she was telling, I don't know if she wanted to create a Michael Myers or a Freddy Krueger or something. She just wanted to create a dark cloud that looms over your head, which is what the Babadook is.
That's a really good point. That's really good because, yeah, I guess in a way, if you make it to where he's visually transcendent, then it might become harder to appreciate the Babadook as a representation of something that is so, in a way, so abstract, so hard to define, right? When you're depressed or when you're dealing with mental health issues, they always feel amorphous. And so it makes sense that the symbolic demon that's haunting you, that's supposed to be that, it's also something that's not very well defined, even though we do get elements of his appearance, its appearance, I guess. I don't want to misgender the Babadook. But there has, the top hat, the trench coat, overcoat. And that's what I like the most. The brief hints when you think that you're seeing the Babadook or something that's Babadook related in the background. Whether it's just the clothes are hanging, or there's that shot where she sees the neighbor. She's watching the neighbor through her window. She's doing the dishes. She looks up. The neighbor's watching TV. She keeps going with the dishes, looks up again, and then you see for like a second on the background at the neighbor's house, there's a figure that has a top hat and looks like it has a coat, and it looks Babadookish. And that shit is scary.
Babadookian?
Babadookian. Yeah, that is, that jolted me far more than the more traditional scares that they have later on. It's like, oh, that's fucking creepy because it's there, but it's not quite there. And there's a couple other moments. I mean, honestly, there's one in her own house early in the movie where she's just looking at, I guess it was her husband's clothes, because she's cleaning up the mess that the kid has made. And, you know, there's a hat that's hanging and the jacket and the pants. And I was like, that is eerie. After what you've seen when she was flipping through the book, I'm like, that is creepy. So I like it as a design. I agree with you that I don't know that I would be able to spot it in the wild, right? If I see somebody with like a top hat and that kind of apparel, I'm not gonna go like, hey, it's the Babadook. Whereas like if I see somebody with a hockey mask, I'm like, it's Jason.
Yeah.
So
which is, we joke about every time we've covered a Nightmare on Elm Street film of, is it kind of weird, this guy is like marketed and they make merchandise and Halloween costumes for kids. I mean, if you actually pay attention to it, he's like a massive pedophile. It's kind of weird, Should probably be taken a bit more darkly than it is.
Wes Craven is like, don't think about that.
Wes Craven sitting on a fucking gold throne in heaven is like, I'm not worried about it, and you shouldn't either. Here's a little interesting anecdote for you. After losing interest in acting, Kent, this is Jennifer Kent, was inspired after watching a certain movie to pursue a career as a filmmaker.
Okay.
The movie, you ask?
Is it a horror movie?
To quote Will Forte, in a way, Dancer in the Dark.
Well, everything is connected in the Contrarians universe.
She wrote to Lars von Trier and asked to study under him, explaining that she found the idea of film school repellent. In 2002, von Trier allowed her to assist him as part of a directing attachment on the set of his film Dogville, starring Nicole Kidman. I've never seen Dogville.
It's the one where the sets are not sets. It's all like the outline of the houses on chalk, like on the street, but you don't actually have the houses. Because that was back when von Trier was still being a minimalist or whatever. He has like his Dogma 95, I think, at the time when he was making movies. And it's like, well, I'm going to play by these rules. And in this case, I think it was not, he wasn't going to build sets. I've seen it once. It's kind of long and really cruel.
You don't say.
Yeah. Even more so, even cruel to the female protagonist, played by Nicole Kidman, who gets abused by everybody in Dogville. Business as usual.
I thought it was around that same time period. I'm trying to think of what I'm thinking of. There's a movie with where John C. Reilly quit because there was an animal killed on set. That's the extent of what I know about it.
Was it the Babadook?
In 2006, Kent directed an episode of Too Twisted, an Australian series following in the tradition of The Twilight Zone. That's fun. So, Dance in the Dark not only spawned spirited discussion on this podcast and in my real life as well, but can make the argument we wouldn't be here talking about the Babadook if it wasn't for the Baba Bjork.
You could also make the argument that maybe you wouldn't have Hereditary without the Babadook. Maybe.
Oh, man. So then Dance in the Dark was a net failure.
Yes.
No, I kid. Anything with Peter Stormare singing in it, it cannot be a failure of any sort.
No, it will always come ahead.
I can give you a short course of sedatives, just until the tests come back. Most mothers aren't too keen on them unless it's really bad.
It's really bad.
Here's an exercise for you, Alex, something that I was going in and out throughout the movie. How does it play if it's a single father instead of a single mother? Does it play roughly the same, or does it work better? Does it work less? I was trying to figure it out because...
Let me tell you about this movie called The Son.
Oh my God, we needed Hugh Jackman versus the Babadook. I mean, yes, but no. We're talking about like specifically, it's the exact same movie. It's a young kid, like 6, 7, and there's like a supernatural entity and whatever. I'm just trying to figure it out. And please, listeners, feel free to chime in because I'm always very interested by the things that happen in a movie because of the conventions of our society and how we perceive traditional male and female figures, and how we've been telling stories a certain way for so long that we just have those biases. And I'm like, does it make the character less vulnerable if you make it a guy, if it's a single father? And does that mean that we have a harder time buying the breakdown? Or is it the opposite, that's making the character a single father makes him even more of a, kind of like with Hugh Jackman, the son is like, yeah, of course he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, right? Like sometimes I think that maybe we are, as viewers, as an audience, we're more likely to give more credit more easily to a maternal instinct. So you see a mom and you're like, well, she's going to figure it out, right? When she yells at the demon at the end, maybe you buy it more from mother than you would from a father. I don't know. I mean, honestly, when I was done with the movie and I had to make myself land on a conclusion, at least temporarily, I actually came to, I don't think it would make a difference. I think that the way that the movie is constructed, you can probably buy either a mother or a father going through most of the situations. I think that the flavor might be a little different, right? But overall, it's a story that I think works either way. And I'm not even saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's more like an observation. I was like, because usually when the thought occurs to me, I instantly go like, oh, it works better if you gender flip it, or it doesn't work at all if you gender flip it. And in this case, I don't think that I can say that. What do you think?
And in case there's any first time listeners out there, we're aware of the irony of two dudes talking about what a woman who wrote and directed a film starring a female character wanted to accomplish. That's different with Hereditary because that's Ari Aster, doing that shit. And so
we don't like him, so
we do not. No, I think this movie clearly wants to be told from the female perspective, which is, that of the single mother, because it's a weird thing that still exists. The plight of the single parent, the single mother is, well, shouldn't have had them kids. And then like the single father, in my experience, in the way society, and traditionally in television and film and whatnot, they just present it as like doing minimal effort is worth celebrating.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I can see how it could play that way, right?
Not saying that's accurate, by the way,
right,
to any of
right,
our single fathers out there, but that's how, traditionally things are portrayed.
Well, to clarify, I was not trying to get in the head of Jennifer Kent. I was trying to get in the head of the audiences. I was like, how does it play for the audience? And you're right. Maybe if you have a single father, and look, when I was watching it, I was not frustrated with it's not Amelie. What's her name? Amelia? Yeah, I was not frustrated with Amelia. I was extremely sympathetic to her cause, partly because I was like, yeah, this is why I would never have a kid. If there's anybody that would feel frustrated by that character, there's a chance that maybe they wouldn't if it was a single father, because you're right. Maybe you're seeing it as oh, he's putting in that extra effort, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, he could have just walked away, but instead he's stuck by the kid. I mean, the situation that makes the character a single parent is pretty much out of their control. So I guess it would be different if she was a single mother because the father just split. But in this case, yeah, I mean, I can see how it would be something that it sounds like a note from an executive, right? Having the meeting with Jennifer Kent, talking about funding. And it's like, look, this has promise, but have you thought about making it a single dad instead of a single mom? We've done our research, and single fathers, they sell better. And maybe we can cast Hugh Jackman. I don't know. Food for thought. I'm always I'm always curious about how those things, you show the same thing to two different people and sometimes they react very differently, and sometimes there's something that unites them and makes them experience it the exact same way. And I think that that's why some movies are wildly successful, because, they manage to connect with the audience in a way that is kind of uniform. And that doesn't mean that I'm part of that audience, right? Like, obviously, this movie's a huge hit everywhere, not so much with us, but there are some things that it's uniting audiences. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm always wondering, like, if you change a little thing, and in this case, you change the gender, and is it as successful? Maybe not. I don't know. But I am glad that it's 98%. I mentioned it when we're talking about it on the pitch, I guess, when we're doing the tease for this episode, that I have watched the follow-up, Jennifer Kent's next movie, which was The Nightingale, I think that's what it's called. And man, it is very different. It's very unflinching. That's a revenge story. Not the kind of thing I like to watch. I think I ultimately sat down and watched it because I was curious. It was getting a lot of divided opinions. And I was like, well, I have watched the Babadook, so I kind of know the filmmaker. I'm curious to see what else she does. And walked away from it thinking I don't need to watch this movie ever again, but I will probably watch more from her. Mm-hmm. So, kind of splitting the difference there. And, going back, as I said in the Last Voyage of the Demeter episode, I think that's where we talked about it. The main character in The Nightingale is the woman that they find in the Demeter. And then, so, that's been bitten by Dracula. So it all, again, everything is connected in the Contrarians universe. I would be very curious how you would feel about The Nightingale, because you've also watched your share of revenge movies, and some of them you like. I mean, on the show, we did Dead Sentence, and you were a lot higher on that than I was. And this is not Dead Sentence. I know. This is a lot more serious, and it is a lot more horrific in its depiction of the stuff that causes the revenge quest to start. Yeah. Which is really probably the biggest reason why I was reluctant to watch it, because, I heard about it before I even decided to give it a go. But still, it's I don't know what else she's done since. I don't know if she has another movie. She's made any more movies since, but she made a mark, at least with those two.
Definitely.
Has she done anything else since?
From what I saw on her filmography, it's just those, but still, like, made a big impact here with her first movie. I mean, again, it's 10 years old and it's something people still regularly cite.
Well, good. And hopefully Esther Davis also benefited from all the attention, because now that we're all in real talk, no more kidding about Kirsten Dunst. She's really good.
Oh, yeah. Agreed.
She holds the movie together.
I haven't slept in weeks, and neither has Samuel. And when we go home tonight, this whole nightmare will start up again, and I'm really not coping.
Well, so Julio, where does that land you on it?
I want to say, I don't remember what I gave it last time when I logged it. I think that having experienced Hereditary somewhat recently, it's probably like a year ago, actually, but still, that conversation, that experience of rewatching it is pretty fresh in my mind. The comparison benefits the Babadook in addition to the things that I really like about it. So I can say, yeah, it kind of goes off the rails, but it doesn't go off the rails as badly, as irreparably as Hereditary does. I've seen what happens when it's just that bad, and it eventually makes its way back to a place where I can at least connect to the ending a little bit. And the first half hour, 45 minutes are just spectacular. So I'm going to say 3 stars, which is still kind of a low score, and definitely lower than what I imagine Chaz gave it. It's probably 5 stars for him, because he fucking loves it. But it's still a good movie, and it's a movie that I would recommend. But then I would just say, just so you know, if you're like me, the ending is probably gonna lose you a little bit. Or the third act. How about you? What does it get?
it honestly, coming into it was 2.5, but the conversations worked it up to 3 for me. So I'll say the C+ is where I'm going to land on this one. My qualms about it that I've expressed remain, but through the course of the conversation, I was like, yeah, what the movie's trying to deliver, it does. It just may not be completely for me in that aspect. So I wasn't mad when it was over. I'll say that. It's the nicest thing you can say about a movie these days. Nah, I jest. It's definitely something I would, if someone asked me, like, should I watch it? I'd be like, yeah, give it a watch. I would give them a heads up about the stuff, the dog dying and whatnot. But
what are you more likely to be for Halloween? Payman or the Babadook? Sexy Babadook or sexy Payman?
Sexy Babadook.
Make it happen, please.
Actively telling people to avoid Hereditary.
That will be the top tier. This is how we plug the Livestream for the Cure 2025 edition. The top tier, we hit the top tier of the nations. Alex will dress as sexy Babadook, and I will dress as sexy Payman.
That might work, man.
God, I don't want to do it though. So.
We both have to be barefoot though. We gotta get the feet out there.
Okay. As we close down, before we go to the next episode, Livestream for the Cure is going to be May 16th and May 17th. Our segment is May 17th at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. We are going to be doing some stuff that we're hammering out the details, but it'll be fun, and we'll have some tiers like we did the last few years. Just join us. Help us raise money for cancer research. Help all the other podcasters are doing their thing those 2 days. And it'll be fun. You'll have a good time. Even if you're just there to watch, it'll be fun. We'll have a video and with a promotion where we explain more. But we're recording this way ahead of time. This is like the end of March. So, of course, some details are still pretty amorphous, like the Babadook. They're just kind of floating around. We need to capture them, leash them, and then feed them some worms so they can come to fruition. But keep an eye out on our YouTube channel and just our social media in general so we can tell you what's going to happen. And then, Alex, honestly, we don't have a firm episode for our coming up next, because coming up next is our summer event. And so what we can tell you, dear listeners, is that all summer long, we're going to be talking about MTV Movie Awards winners from the 90s.
Damn right.
The 1994 MTV Movie Awards. So incredible they had to make it 3 times. 3 times the action. 3 times the romance.
You desire it.
3 times the suspense.
And the winner is...
The 3rd annual MTV Movie Awards.
We have booked a date where we're going to just talk about what's going on, which movies. We're just going to do a little bit of a draft. Alex is going to pick 6. I'm going to pick 6, and then we'll give them to you. We'll probably have patrons be able to actually listen to that conversation, but keep an eye out for our summer event schedule and lineup. But that'll be fun. That is coming up next as far as like the entire summer. And then as far as our Patreon channel this month, the bonus episode is also from Chas Fisher, a nice counterbalance to the Babadook. It's another Aussie horror movie. This is Talk to Me. Also, from what I remember, pretty fresh. By now, it should be on your feeds. We recorded that conversation last week, I think. Then for video reviews, patron Ryan is making me watch the super long Stanley Kubrick, Ryan O'Neal vehicle, Barry Lyndon. I'm yawning right now just thinking about it. But we'll see. Maybe it'll work for me now. And then Alex is watching the movie Sultan, which I have no idea what that is. And then we have Contrarians After Hours. Alex, what are you bringing for Contrarians After Hours this time?
Spring football is back. The UFL kicked off this past weekend, which past meaning the last weekend of March 2025. And I drove up to Arlington to watch the Arlington Renegades play the San Antonio Brahmas. So be recounting my great day, beautiful day in Arlington of football. and then also my voyage to Denton and the Movie Trading Company and my physical media pickups. Because if I am in anywhere remotely close to Denton, Texas, there are at least one of two locations I will go, and it's a near impossibility for me to leave without something to put in a movie player when I get home.
That's great. You're probably going to be talking about some classics, whereas I am going to be talking about a brand new movie, my second 2025 release. And I threatened you with this a couple episodes ago, and now it finally happened. I watched the new Russo brothers movie, The Electric State, Netflix release starring Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown. This was on my list of things that I was looking forward to, because it's directed by the Russos, who I like, and written by the same team that wrote most Avengers movies, Marcus and McFeely. So kind of getting the Avengers team together, I was like, sure, let's watch what they did for Netflix this time. And the fact that it was getting trashed by critics, it just gave me even more fire to give it a shot. So I will tell you if the critics are right or if they're overreacting. And then, just so it's not all new stuff on my end, I rewatched David Fincher's follow-up to Seven, The Game, which is one of the weirdest follow-ups to a movie. I think.
Yes.
Have you seen it? Have you seen The Game?
Years and years and years ago.
Okay, so I don't have to worry about spoiling it for you, right? Like, you probably remember the big thing in The Game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So we'll probably save that for last. We'll close with The Game so we can talk spoilers. So The Game, The Electric State, Alex's trip to Arlington, and collection of new additions to his collection for physical media.
Mm-hmm.
That plus all the other stuff on our Patreon channel if you want to check it out. Patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. And now, Alex, let's get out of here.
Off to the basement we go.
With Worms.
Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
Just for old time's sake, I really don't care who you're seeing or how much money you make together.